everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about Sometimes You Stay by Liz Johnson. So, this one is a contemporary romance, it's Christian fiction, and it's a standalone story that's connected to Liz Johnson's books. She's got a couple of series in Prince Edward Island. Probably a well known one relates to the Red Door Inn. So, it's connected into that story world, which is really fun. And so, why did I want to read it? Well, obviously, those connections have inspired me. And I've recently recorded an episode on Meddling with Mistletoe, which is a Christmas romance that Liz has written set on Prince Edward Island. And that will drop in July because I'm doing a special 1 week Christmas in July feature here. And I also enjoyed reading Beyond the Tides, that was a Prince Edward Island book from Liz Johnson as well. And you can find the book recommendations for those books on my blog, and that's at my website, which is at narelleatkins.com. And there'll be a link in the show notes. And as always, I'll add my usual disclaimer and many thanks to the publisher who provided an advance reader copy of the book. And all the opinions that I express in this episode are completely my own. So let's talk about the book. Sometimes You Stay by Liz Johnson is set on Prince Edward Island in Canada, which is just a gorgeous setting for a book. And as we all know, the very famous Anne books come from that part of the world. And so there are quite a few romance tropes in this one. We effectively have a vacation romance because the hero lives on the island and our leading lady is visiting the island for a short time. So I'm going to call this a vacation romance because she lives, basically her life is a permanent vacation, which you'll find out more about in a minute. We also have an opposite attracts situation happening with our main characters. There's forced proximity in the book that comes from the meet cute, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And there's also found family themes in the story. So let's start with the first line, which is this one. Lucretia Martine wasn't willing to call a single corner of the world home. And that is really a fabulous first line because it sums up exactly what's going on with our leading lady, whose name is Cretia, though her full name is Lucretia. So she's in her mid-20s and she's originally from Arizona and she has either Spanish or Hispanic heritage somewhere along the lines as well because her last name is actually Martin, but she refers to it as Martine. And that seems to be a bit of an influencer online thing I've noticed that with accents and different things. So that's what she does. So she's a travel blogger, she creates digital content, she's a world traveler, and she effectively has no home base. And she hasn't been back to Arizona where her mother is for 4 years. And there's a whole lot of reasons for why that's happened that come out in the story. So at the start of the story, Crucia's basically a nomad. She has a suitcase and a backpack, and that's pretty much her entire worldly possessions that she travels with. She's only on Prince Edward Island for 2 days, and her focus is making the most of that time to create digital content and video blogs that she will post online for her followers. And she has more than 3 million followers. So she's very successful at what she does. She's financially comfortable and she could retire if she wanted to and settle down, but she chooses not to. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for why she makes that decision. And so, because she has invested this money quite wisely, she could retire. So, she's doing quite well from her nomadic travel blogger lifestyle that she's enjoying with doing all the videos and all the content for the socials. And then we have Finn, and he's very different to Croatia, which is why we have an opposites attract situation. He's 33 years old and he lives on Prince Edward Island, born and bred in North Rustico, which is on the north shore of the island. It's a small harbour town. And he lives on the family farm that was purchased by his great grandparents. His great grandfather owned it. And then he has a dog breeding business where he breeds Newfoundlands. And that was a business that his father and grandfather established. So he's got very strong roots in Prince Edward Island. and he's very busy with all his with the dog breeding business and the animals that he has on the farm. So the story starts in late April. So of course we're in puppy season, so he's got puppies that are on the way as well. He's also had a bank loan that's been rejected. He's been wanting to expand the business and do a few things and been feeling a bit deflated and despondent. And he also has a few issues in terms of not feeling good enough and trying to live up to the family legacy. And I mean, he's really a delightful guy, and he just loves animals, and he has a menagerie of animals in the barn, and I really love that side of his character. He's a very solid, stable guy who lives a very simple life. He's not interested in technology and all the fancy stuff that Croatia does. But anyway, let's get to the meet cute. Now, this meet cute is very different. I'm not actually going to say what happens because I'm not going to spoil it. You'll need to read it. But it is very, very awkward. It is extremely embarrassing and it has massive consequences. And we meet Joe Jr., who is the most adorable Newfoundland, goofy dog. He's just got such a sweet nature. And he's supposed to be getting trained to do search and rescue, but he's a bit challenging when it comes to being obedient, which makes a few interesting moments in the story. So, Krisha and Finn have never met until something happens and she accidentally ends up taking a dip in the harbour. And that was not what she was planning to do at all. And it's kind of Finn's fault that she ended up in the harbour. So he feels really bad and he wants to help her. And that's what kicks off the story in terms of how they meet. And it was, as I said, it's a very good meet cute. I really enjoyed it, and the I enjoyed how it played out, but I'm not going to tell you what it is because it was very fun. So after they meet, they end up, there's a whole lot of problems that are going on. And I'm going to skim over this a bit because I don't want to give away the story. So you'll have to read the story to find out a bit more. But basically, Krisha is stuck on Prince Edward Island for longer than 2 days, and she ends up staying with Marie at the Red Door Inn. So if you've read some of Liz's other books, you'll know who Marie is. And Finn really does fall quite quickly for Croatia. So this is quite a short time frame romance. And they start off with a friendship that develops, but he does develop feelings for her before she kind of works out that she's reciprocating. But his life is on Prince Edward Island and he's got no ambitions to travel, and her life is just so different to his that it's very hard for him to sort of to see her settling down, and he can't see himself traveling. So he kind of thinks, well, this is nice, but really nothing can probably come of it. And Krisha never stays anywhere. And she's drawn to Finn and the island people, like you, the small town on Prince Edward Island. They're just lovely, lovely, generous, salt of the earth people. And they really embrace Croatia as one of their own. And so she feels a sense of belonging that is very uncomfortable in some respects because of her dysfunctional childhood and things that have happened in the past. And so during the story, she has to really work out if she's willing to deal with her emotional baggage in the past. And why she's on the run is, I mean, she's effectively running away from stuff that happened when she was younger, and that's why she travels all the time and doesn't have a home base. And no, in the story, she really needs to work on looking at why that's happening. And then Finn at the same time needs to get over his struggles with not feeling good enough and believing that he can offer Croatia a good life as well. And he's a bit of a loner with his animals. He loves his animals. And so it's a different mindset for him to think about being in a relationship. It's not something that he expected to happen anytime soon. So there's lots of things going on in this story. And I describe this one as having relevant faith elements with a very light touch. So you don't really come across the faith elements until you get towards the end of the story. And that's where you'll see what's going on, because particularly with Croatia, she needed to unpack stuff for her to actually work out how to find home and where she wants home to be and all of those kind of things. And so found family is definitely a theme that gets explored in this story. And so, why did I love reading this one? Well, there's so much to love. The meet cute and the forced proximity that happens as a result of the meet cute is just really fun. And Kraysha and Finn have they get to know each other. She loves the animals that he has, and she helps him with the puppies. And there's just some really lovely, sweet, romantic moments in the story that I really loved. And the setting is gorgeous with the harbour and Prince Edward Island, and there's something special about books that are written there. And so I'm always drawn to that setting as a reader from having loved the Anne books when I was younger. And the animals, puppies, we've got the dogs. He's also got goats, and there's some very funny moments that happen with these animals. And Cretia was a really interesting character. So if when we first meet her, she kind of can look like she's a bit full of herself, maybe even in the way she's behaving, and maybe not particularly relatable. But once you start to get to know who she is and what makes her tick and understand why she is doing what she's doing and see that, then a whole lot of stuff makes sense. And I really loved how independent she was. And she needed to be like that to overcome her childhood and the difficulties that were going on there. And I really liked how she chose to, when she was in her late teens, instead of being the victim and saying, poor me, everything's too hard, and being a victim of circumstance from the situation that she was born into, she was actually able to step up out of that situation and chase opportunities and make her own life. And really, there's a lot to be commended, I think, from that perspective. And that really makes sense in terms of she has these 3 million followers and she doesn't really have a lot of friends. It's quite a lonely life on the road with what she's doing. And Finn's also primarily with his animals. He has friends, but he doesn't spend a lot of time with them. So it was really interesting bringing these two people together that are quite independent in their own way, but then realize that together they would make a really good team. So, and Finn is just so lovable, and the animals that he loves are just lovable. So, that was a really lovely part of the story that I appreciated. And as I said, the Prince Edward Island story world that Liz Johnson's created in a number of her books is just delightful. And you just want to go back and meet these characters again. And it was so fun to see cameos from other books in the series and to see the Red Door Inn, of course. So, my favorite book quote from the story is this one: the heart of love is always sacrifice. And this was really important for Cretia to understand. And she really didn't have a good grasp on what love is in many respects. And she hadn't really, with her nomadic life on the road, she hadn't really had a lot to do with God or really thought about faith matters. Her grandmother was a very important person in her life, and her grandmother passed away when she was young. And that was quite unfortunate that her grandmother wasn't around longer because she was a very solid, good part of Cretia's life. And so part of the story in terms of Cretia's journey is learning about what love is and really appreciating the salt of the earth, solid people who understand that love isn't about just taking what you want and chasing stuff. It's actually about sacrificial love, which goes back to the biblical principles with Jesus, et cetera, et cetera. So that doesn't all get spelled out in the story. It's very much a light touch on the faith elements. But if you want to think about things, you can end up going down those paths and sort of really grasping that there are some very sort of strong faith elements that underpin the faith elements that we see on the page. So the impact on me, there was lots of smiles, lots of laugh out loud moments, and the animals were just adorable. And animals are like children in books. They can create a lot of humor, and there were definitely some fun moments that related to the animals as well. So, in summary, I would recommend this book to readers who like vacation romance type stories, particularly when you've got the opposites attract and different worlds aspects, and one of the main characters doesn't belong there, and can they stay, or does the other one leave, and all those types of things. If you like forced proximity, you'll love this one. If you love animals and puppies, you'll definitely enjoy this one. If Prince Edward Island and the small town charm that goes with that is an attraction to you, then you'll enjoy this story. If you like found family themes, you'll appreciate how they play out in the story. And as I said, it has relevant faith elements that were very organic to what was happening in the story with a light touch, and I love that as well. Thanks for joining me today. Does Sometimes You Stay sound like a book that you'd like to read? Have you read it? What did you think? You can let me know. If you're listening on the podcast, you can send me a text via a link in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, you can like the episode and leave a comment at YouTube and let me know what you think. You can also email me via my website. There's a contact form there at narelleatkins.com. Please subscribe at your favorite podcasting app or at YouTube if you've enjoyed this episode, and that means you'll get a notification and you won't miss any episodes. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share the link with a friend who you think would enjoy Liz Johnson's books and who likes reading contemporary Christian romance. All the links that I've mentioned are in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time.